All right, so alleged multi-million US dollar fraud at SSL and Usain Bolt being one of about 30 Jamaicans affected. We got to talk about it naturally. And I just had to take a little time yesterday to just process the information, process my feelings about it as somebody who has been involved in financial education for the past 3 years plus. And doing the work that I do to try to get you guys to invest, and then having something like this just come and erode confidence completely. And then beyond that, empathizing with the victims of this scandal, of this alleged fraud, Usain Bolt being foremost among them, because we all know him, we all experienced his journey, his pain, his sacrifices, and the other about 30 people who've been fleeced as well. We don't know their stories, but I'm sure they all have their own stories of hard work and sacrifice too, and this has affected them. And so I, like many of you, feel angry that this has happened. I feel sad. I feel on a certain level ashamed, because now this is being reported in the international press as something that has happened in Jamaica to an international icon. And there's so many feelings that I just need to sit down and process. But also, why I had to take that time is that I had to start thinking of solutions, because I started seeing a lot of questions about like, okay, what do I do now? Do I pull all my investments and just go savings? Do I invest abroad? Do I just not bother? What's the next steps? Do Bolt and the other victims get their money back? What happens next? And so I had to really start thinking about those questions seriously. And I know a lot of you are going to ask, well, Kalila, are you still going to invest? Yes. Are you still going to tell us to invest? Yes. And I'm going to explain why. There's so many factors at play, right? Money is an asset that people will always covet, no matter where you hold it. It's just the nature of money and the nature of people to want more money, especially the way our economic system is set up. And so you always have to have in the back of your mind the fact that there is a risk associated with having money, any amount of money. And no matter where you leave your money, it is not 100% safe. So for those of you saying that I'm not going to invest again because of this, or I'm going to liquidate all my investments and put it into savings, well, it's not completely safe in savings either, because we just heard the story about NCB. A few months ago, we had Sagicor, and those were both deposit-taking institutions that savings accounts were among those affected from what I understand. So then what are you going to do? Are you going to just put the money under your mattress at home? What if somebody breaks into your house and steals it from there? What if a fire happens at your house and you lose all that money as well? And I see some people saying, well, this is why I don't invest in Jamaica, I only invest abroad. You guys know the United States is like one of the most corrupt countries in the entire world, right? Especially when it comes to money. You guys ever heard of a gentleman named Bernie Madoff? Look at what just happened last year with the whole FTX scandal. And I know that was cryptocurrency, but FTX was still a highly reputable company. And big scandal happened at FTX, and investors, crypto investors, lost their money who stored it on that exchange. So your money is not entirely safe anywhere. And that's just facts. That's just the truth. Anything can happen to it at any institution. And I feel like you kind of have to think about it like being on a plane. Occasionally you have a plane that crashes or some part of the plane malfunctions and people die. But what you're going to do, you're going to not ride planes again ever for the rest of your life. Or same thing happens in cars. You have car accidents all the time. What you're going to do? Not drive, not ride in a car, just walk everywhere. There is a certain level of risk inherent with life. And not just with life, but with money as well. And that's just a cold, hard fact. No matter where you keep your money, there is some level of risk. And I started thinking, well, how can we mitigate that risk? What are some of the things that we can do now to ensure that we don't have to live with the full extent of the possible risk? We don't have to be as exposed as losing your entire retirement savings because of one fraudulent one person's deception and fraud, right? And so one thing I would say is you definitely want to diversify your accounts. So me personally, I have accounts at 2 different brokerage firms, and at least if something was to happen at one, it's not everything wiped out because you have investments somewhere else as well. Plus I have savings at multiple different institutions as well. Savings accounts, checking accounts, investment accounts, different types of investments. So one, you definitely want to be diversified and spread that risk around so that if anything happens at one place, then at least it's not everything that's gone, right? 2 is more on the authorities level. So for one, there definitely is no better time than now and no better reason than now for strengthening the FSC. It is clear that the Financial Services Commission needs help. From what I have heard, they are severely understaffed. Things that go to the FSC take forever, and that's just because they don't have the manpower. We're now seeing reports that the FSC raised concerns about SSL years ago. I don't know how those things were resolved, but absolutely one of the priorities of the authorities now needs to be to strengthen the FSC. And then on an institutional level, the financial institutions, especially the investment firms now, since this is the biggest scandal in I don't even know how long, they're going to have a lot of work to do to get back investor trust, to get back the trust of their clients and their potential clients. They're going to have a lot to do to get people to start investing again and to not pull their funds. And one thing that I have to say is, you have some firms that are not sending out regular statements. And this was alleged in this case that apparently they only were giving statements upon request. And that should be a red flag. If you are not getting regular statements from your financial institution, then you need to raise that with them now. And financial institutions that are not giving customers regular statements, that is a red flag, and you need to address that immediately. You need to make sure that your customers have statements from you at least every month, if not access online, where people can just check their accounts at any time. And another thing I thought that could possibly mitigate some of this risk and help investors regain confidence in the system is, why can't I get a text alert whenever there is any transaction on my account? The same way the banks send you a text, I get texts all the time, I get emails saying your Visa debit was just used at whatever location at whatever time, or your credit card was just charged for this amount. We should be able to get the same types of alerts for our investment accounts whenever stocks are sold from our account, whenever money is transferred from our account, and when stocks are bought on our behalf as well. It shouldn't be too difficult to implement, since many of the financial institutions, the banks in particular, already use this technology for everyday banking. It's just a matter now of extending the service to the investment arm of these institutions. And the ones that are not attached to a major bank, then you guys need to get on with the technology so that we customers can know exactly what is happening in our accounts at every single time. Another thing, you guys, make sure you're the only signatory on your account. Do not give advisors at any institutions the authority to sign on your behalf. Just don't do it. Don't do it, So these are just some of the preliminary thoughts that I've been having about how to mitigate it. What's going to happen now, I don't fully know. Will Bolt and the other investors get their money back? I don't know. I don't know what exactly is going to happen. I presume the FSC and the FID and all other authorities are going to continue investigating. They're probably going to try to follow the money train and see where the accused individual or individuals transferred this money, whether any of it still remains, whether they used any of it to purchase assets. And if they did purchase assets, and if there still is cash somewhere under Jamaica's Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA, that can be seized by the authorities, and whatever properties or any other assets were purchased, those can be liquidated and potentially, I don't know if this is how it works, returned to the original owners. I think they also have the option of lawsuits, of suing the company. But again, those two things probably going to take many years before they get any type of restitution. I think, and I was thinking, what if this was to happen to me? What would I do if I had millions of dollars invested? And let's say this was the chunk of my life savings, right? What would I do after I finish crying? After I recover from the initial shock? I'm thinking for myself and for somebody like Bolt, who obviously he has other investments, right? This isn't his only investment. He has real estate investments, BPO. He has investments in other companies as well. Even though his sprint career is over, he's still young enough to recover financially. And I'm sure he will, as much of a shock it is, and as much as he hates to lose what he loses, I believe that, if it was me as well, once I recover from that shock, I'd just move on to the next thing. Of course, still trying to recover whatever I can recover through the legal channels. But I think in the end, at least for those who are young enough, they'll be all right. Now, my real concern is for some of the older investors, some who may be pensioners, who may be receiving payouts on their accounts because this is their pension. What happens to them? Who takes care of them? That's where my real concern lies right now for people like that. What do they do? Do they even have the the money to pursue legal action, since their money was supposedly at SSL? If they have other accounts, I don't know. But it really is a terrible situation. It's a stain on the entire industry. And the authorities and the institutions are going to have a lot of work to do to restore our trust. Another thing that I wanted to mention, a lot of people were asking about JDIC, Jamaica Deposit Insurance Corporation. So JDIC actually covers your deposits at banks and credit unions. And your money is insured up to $1.2 million. So if you have any savings in excess of that at financial institutions, it's not covered. And JDIC also doesn't cover investment firms, doesn't cover brokerage houses. And a thought I had is that maybe it should. Maybe it's time that we make that amendment to allow JDIC to cover investment firms, or set up a similar type of insurance scheme that covers investments. Because if you recall how JDIC came about, it came about in the late 90s after the FinSac period. And FinSac was a time banking institutions were just closing left, right, and center, were just going under, and people lost their money. And it was a time when Jamaicans had a severe mistrust of the banking system for good reason. And so JDIC came about to help to alleviate that fear and to encourage people to continue banking with financial institutions. And I think right now we are at a similar crossroads in terms of the investment banking sector, maybe not on the scale of FinSac in the 90s, but it's a big enough blow that something really serious needs to be done to restore investor confidence at this point. And I'm still going to continue investing, and I'm going to take that risk, knowing that there is risk in everything we do and everywhere we go. And I hope that you guys continue as well. But I understand if you don't. And I understand if you are crippled by fear at this moment. But boy, sometimes it's just rough, you just have to hold the L. And I don't know what else I can say at this moment. Let's see how the authorities and the institutions respond. The ball is in their court now to restore our trust in them.